All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another live stream of my writer's workshop series where I'm going to be working on my next book. Today is the day we're going to be finishing up part 2 of 3 parts. There's 3 parts in book 2. We're going to be finishing up part 2, which is actually the longest part in book 2. Before we get things started on drafting the final section, I do want to go over and show off what we have left. There is a blur filter in place. Can't see the can't actually see the text, but just kind of look at just how much we have to write. Give me 1 second while I pull up my Twitch stream real quick. Make sure my audio is coming up fine. Alright, so this is the last section. Scene 20 that you can see begins right here. I don't know if you can see the highlight on your end. It might be kind of hard to see with the blur filter. But this goes on to here. This is the end of scene 20. It's just a very short scene. It's mostly dialogue. So I'm going to expand on some parts with exposition. And this begins the final part, part 3. There are, I think, 9 scenes in part 3. So this whole thing in scene 1 is actually kind of meant to be an experimental thing, and trying to do a new take on a flashback sequence. Usually, flashback sequences in stories are often only seen by the reader. It's kind of like a new take on the flashback sequence where other characters can actually visually see the past. And this is seen for the first time here, and there's also going to be another spin later on the story. So here's the beginning of an experimental flashback sequence in part 3. And after I draft this, I'm actually going to try and contact because this actually kind of focuses on law enforcement strategies and judicial practices in the 1920s. So I'm going to need to find someone who's actually familiar with that type of thing and send him this draft to see if this is actually accurate for the time period. So this is all the first part of this book. Part 2, this is all the first scene of part 3. This is the beginning of part 2, so it's a very long sequence in part 3. And this is part 2. This is part 3 right here. Starting on that page. This is actually the beginning of another take on a flashback sequence. This is one that's, instead of like the previous one, which is seen by 3 characters, this is the one where the past is actually seen by 1 character. And there's going to be like different ways for how it's going to be done, like different lore reasons for how it's done. And it's kind of like my unique take on how a flashback sequence could be done. This actually isn't the first thing that I'm planning on doing. I actually have something planned where I'm going to be having like a very extended flashback sequence in book 7 called Dim Origins, which is going to be the entire book is essentially going to be telling the story of God and his people and how they kind of or their history and how they kind of like created the universe, all this kind of stuff. Actually going to be my attempt at kind of delving into the fictional history of God's people, which actually isn't really explained in the Bible. They were just kind of like accepted to just be there. But here is scene 4. Here is scene 5. So these scenes are mostly mostly all dialogue. I'm noticing, so I'm going to expand on a bit with exposition. Here's scene 6, scene 7, scene 8, scene 9, scene 10, scene 11. I was actually wrong in thinking there was scene 12. Scene 13. Scene 14. Scene 15. Scene 16. And the epilogue. So there are 17 scenes in part 3. We have another scene, the final scene in part 2. So that is 18 scenes total we have left to write before the first draft is completed. We are approaching 60,000 words in the first draft. I'll probably be getting to maybe like 90,000 words by the time the first draft is finished. So let's go back to the top, or sort of the beginning. And we will get started on drafting the final scene of part 2, of book 2. Oh, everyone's day is going great. I am kind of like very tired, I guess. I was actually kind of falling asleep earlier in the day, but I was up at about 7 a.m. I slept in a bit. Like, I first woke up at 5, I went back to sleep, and I woke up at 7. I've been playing Disney Dreamlight Valley for about 5 hours, and was trying to get to a certain point because I couldn't complete the routine duties for the Star Path until I got to like page 6 of the Star Path to unlock a clothing item that needed for routine duty. So I've been literally grinding the Star Path out for yesterday and today, and I finally got that duty done, that routine duty done, so I can take a break and kind of go through the Star Path at my leisure, even though most of it is already done now. I had a name for the cleansing rooms that I think I'm not actually going to use, but initially in my initial draft I was going to call these cleansing rooms of redemption, but I decided to change that.
Keep them cards close to my chest, all of my circle, one of the best. Cops find me, I'm not talking pets, talking animals, there's no vets. GP don't know nothing with vets, he's on Google, you know how it gets. UK living in London, rents, but out here, yeah, spitting bars on decks. I've got visions, I've got bets, putting my hours, paid off debts. Old school winding like cassettes, but we got the family, my cadets. Show me a move, what's next? Turn up the set like life is a board of chess. Show me a move, what's next? That turn up the set, you bet. We write it, yeah, we bake it, yeah, it's legendary. Greatness only, yeah, you know this crowd is heavy. When the energy is warrior, yo, how you gonna get me? When the mindset is active, tell them please don't tempt me. Yeah, we write it, yeah, we bake it, yeah, it's legendary. Greatness only, yeah, you know this crown is heavy. When the energy is warrior, yo, how you gonna get me? When the mindset is active, tell them please don't tempt me.
I have a character trait for Alec Lowe that I'm going to try and like rewrite a bit to try and make it a little bit more consistent. In book 1, Alec Lowe is constantly always smoking a pipe with tobacco. He's not smoking marijuana or crack, smoking tobacco, but he's smoking through like one of those old wooden pipes that old people used to do. My grandpa used to smoke a wooden pipe. And he also drinks whiskey from a flask, and I didn't do that once. I think I did that once actually in part 1. I need to make sure I do that throughout the thing to make it more consistent with this character. That's another thing I kind of forgot to do. And I also had the opportunity to just try to make it sort of like a little bit of a gag to kind of bring some levity in part 2, where Lilith is actually kind of experiencing withdrawals from not smoking tobacco because Alec is kind of like a tobacco addict. So I had the opportunity to do something a little bit funny with Lois' character. but I need to do that in the revisions because I'm not going back and doing that now. There's actually too many scenes I would need to go back and change, so I'd rather do that while I'm revising the story. Actually, why is this in quotes? That doesn't really make any sense. I'm going to remove these because it's not really meant to be suggestive like that. I'm break is starting in 10 minutes. It flows as through rises. Okay, exposition is done. Just gonna go into the outline, cross this out. Okay, this is actually already written. I didn't realize I already had that coming up. Just go ahead and copy and paste. this whole thing here. Oh wait, hold on. This. I'll say, I think that one of my biggest strengths is as a writer. Actually, something that a lot of writers are actually pretty good at. At least it's like a skill you kind of have to learn to develop, and over time, like a lot of writers are end up kind of being good at it. But I feel one of my strengths as a writer is actually being able to communicate emotions that a certain character is actually experiencing, and I kind of do this through body language and through dialogue, and that's like a skill that a lot of writers are actually kind of proficient in. It's actually kind of good skill to have, to actually be able to vocalize the emotions the characters are feeling, but it can be kind of a hard thing to do at times. I think I do it pretty well. It's definitely like a learned skill as a writer. Like I definitely, I think it's something I kind of always did. Even back when I was like in 3rd grade and I was drafting my first book, a children's book, Animal Train, that I ended up losing the copy of. I forgot about until the 7th grade. Or sorry, 8th grade. But even then, I think I did kind of vocalize the emotions pretty well for those characters. Actually, something that I was just kind of praised for in grad school, where a lot of my peers were actually very surprised by how I just kind of show like these different emotions for characters. It makes me wonder if that's kind of like a rare trait that a lot of writers have. Especially a lot of amateur writers, I should say. Again, I think this is a skill that a lot of writers, professional writers, actually learn to develop over time. But I think like people like Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, like all these really famous authors. Although J.K. Rowling is kind of like a controversial thing to use since she's kind of become more transphobic as time passes. But a lot of these famous writers, a lot of these successful writers, kind of had to learn to develop that as a skill, and they're kind of good at it now that they're have way more experience. But I feel like I've always kind of managed to do this strategy kind of well. There's a word. Self-flagellation. Self-flagellation, that's a good word. Or self-reproach. Self-reproach is better. Literally never heard of those words. Actually, I heard of self-flagellation, but I didn't really know what it meant. Not a word in my active vocabulary, but self-reproach is new. I don't think I've heard of that. Outbreak is now over. Let's see. Let's see. I need to pull up my notes. I don't know if I Actually, I should have my draft in my folder. Final draft. Control F. Victoria. Nope. Da, 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 da. Not here. 10 years before Outglow arrived in heaven. Okay, that doesn't say when. I need to pull up my I need to pull up my Google Drive. Is it the outline? Yes, I think so. Let's see. I have a thing at the bottom of the outline that has a timeline. Here it is. Alec died in 1969. So Victoria would have died in 1959. In this book, it is currently 2004 months after. Book takes place at the beginning of 4 months after I initially started drafting it in June in 2018. That's kind of where I kind of set the setting for book 1. 4 months later, July, August, September. Wait, hold on. August, October. It says October. Outglow was in hell for 4 months in hell and 1 month on Earth, so that is November. So it's currently November in 2018. So let's see. I need a fucking calculator. Let's see, 2018 minus 1959. 59 years, been 59. That's not right, is it? Oh. That's a weird number. Alright, so let's actually go ahead and kind of expand on this a bit. Let's see, book 1 and June.
Okay, I'll worry about tomorrow another day. Don't think about your problems, they go away. My bags in the
Story.
business class window seat. I look as we float away. Wrote a verse was a throwaway. Play that shit for a label and they was blown away. I guess these growing pains got me in
Book
golden chains.
2 basket began 4 months later, and my August. I did the math wrong. October. Just kind of writing this down because I know it will be important later on. Just make sure I'm establishing a timeline. Let's see.
Sometimes you gotta feel what you don't want to feel, just to know it's the real. And when you try to conceal, the truth always comes to light. Just
Torture
that it's all gonna reveal.
and hell or one.
In the cut down bad, try and get me a deal. Same people there with me, they rewarded the seeds, but now they six in the field. I'll be questioning, is it even real? Fast life, try and be even kill. You ain't have to hunt for what you eat if you even killed. Alright, I got it now, give me the wheel. Let me show them how to do it when you're free. Got no reason to chill, got every reason to stop. But I need to feel what I said to do when I was reason to mill.
November.
Now, kill it, get the cheese in the mail. Broke the locks, I got the keys to the jail. Try freeing the
Book reaches. Making sure I establish a timeline because I know for a fucking fact that I'm going to forget this down the line. Okay, I need to revise this. Okay. Exposition is done. Let's go back to the outline, cross this out. I'm gonna copy and paste this. There's the last bit of dialogue in the scene and the last bit of exposition. We're gonna be expanding the exposition again in the scene. Oh god, that is so trippy. Look at that. Go away, please. Fuck, that's so trippy. That's so trippy. Oh. Fuck. Just went down to Twitch and it was just buffering or something. That was just so trippy. Ooh.
We won't stop. $250,000 for the planes, ain't that day I go get it. 50K for the bad bitches when I step in Magic City. Batting up like Showway, I'ma hit it off the building. You can have my throwaways, I ain't even being tender. Always buy my cash, I could never miss a digit. I wonder if that ass real, I just wanna get up in it. You can have them racks, babe, just gotta mind your business. I barely see the time, cause the watch too expensive. Go hard like I'm Kobe, 24 on the clock. Grinding hard to the morning, promise that we won't drop. I can take no losses, pray that we make it out. We ain't scared to take a shot, guarantee we won't stop. 6'3" when I'm cruising, on the island on the yacht. Bad bitch call the phone, she just wanna smoke us out. Overtime working hard, getting money don't stop. We all came from the bottom, we all try to make it out. You go brick by brick, till you build a house. Never switching my team, I'm down for the route. 5 rings like Kobe, I'ma hit it in and out. In Europe like I'm Luka, gotta fly them bitches out. Go hard like I'm Kobe, 24 on the clock. Grinding hard to the morning, promise that we won't drop. I can take no losses, pray that we make it out. We ain't scared to take a shot, guarantee we won't stop. Guarantee we won't stop. Guarantee we won't stop. 24 like
say fear overran logic. That's kind of the wrong word for morality rather than logic. I feel like there's an argument to be. Just go on and just explain what I was writing. It's kind of more so me explaining like Georgie's fears about like father confronting his daughter and kind of being there for them and accepting his role as a father. And throughout this book, he's just kind of running away, trying to find a way for him to essentially kind of running away from responsibility because he fears that he's not ready to be a father, that he won't be a good father. And every single time he goes to someone in the story, they always tell him to do the same thing, to go be there for a father, that no one's ready to be a father, this kind of stuff. And it's just important that you try. And I'm expanding on Georgie's fears right now. And I was gonna say that he knew it wasn't fair for his daughter and his ex-girlfriend, but fear overran logic. There is an argument to be made that there is a form of logic involved in running away from fatherhood. Because there's logic is really... It's really just is essentially what makes sense for a situation. Like, you could make an argument about the sky being purple. You could make an argument about the sky being purple because there's actually been a scientific study that birds can actually see a different shade of colors that we can, and for them the sky is purple and is actually believed that it's the true color of the sky. That's a little scientific fact, but for us it's blue. So you can actually say logically, because of what science has discovered, the sky is actually purple. We just perceive it as blue. But you can bring that point out to a couple different people in the world, and they'll probably say, "Oh, you're an idiot. The sky is clearly blue. It's not purple." There's actually people out there that have had conversations like that in the past. So, if you say that fear overran logic, there could be an argument to be made that running away from responsibility as a father is a logical decision. It's actually more correct in the scene to say fear overran morality. And I have to think about these things when you're writing a book. Essentially, grammatically, to what makes sense for writing. I should say the word I'm looking for, combination of words. I don't know. Syntax? What's syntax? Is syntax the word I'm looking for? Definition of syntax. Yeah, syntax is the word I'm looking for. Okay. Go ahead and that and put this here. Oh, I did it again.
Who the baddest in the room? Gotta point him out. Buns in the sun, got him going south. Can't let me down, bitch, I'm getting out. You on his dick and I'm in his mouth. Yeah, bitch, it's a sweep. He a rat, he be giving me cheese. Cleaning house, got him down on his knees. Thinking you bigger than me, a disease. I'm a bad bitch, she a bad bitch too, got cabbage.
Okay, this is kind of a fucking mistake on my part. This is written in Georgie's thing, so I'm actually going to remove this because it's kind of went from Georgie's perspective to Alex's perspective, and that's not a very good thing. When you're writing stories like this where there's multiple perspectives, if you have a perspective focusing on one character, you stick to that perspective. As I actually had a problem that I actually kind of did a lot in drafting my master's project. I think I did kind of voluntarily.
I'm a bad bitch, she a bad bitch too, got cabbage. Yeah, I'm mad rich, ooh. I don't talk that shit, I'm a savage, boo. I don't gotta ask what you ask, is you cool? I'm a bad bitch, I'm a bad bitch. 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 I'm a bad bitch, I'm a bad bitch.
Okay, this scene is done. This scene is done. Go ahead and control enter. You're gonna go into, put this in the center of the page right about here. And let's see. Part 3, Rise of Outglow. Go back to here. Part 1 is 36. 36 is size. Where is fuck? Ah, fuck! Stop it. 36 again. Okay. Making sure. Making sure it's all consistent. Changing the font size to 36. Part 3. Rise of Alec. Alright, we are done here. 9, what was it? How many scenes was it? 16, 17 scenes left. Okay, let's go back to... Here, we'll cut this out. And I think we are done. So, if you are remotely interested with seasonal games that cover my channel will be played for almost completion. I am not going to be playing streaming Far Cry 4 on Friday. Instead, I'm going to be recording a bonus video shorts. It's going to be part of a new series for Far Cry 4. And it's going to be me trying to farm the weapons in the game. So I'm going to be going from location to location, collecting chests to get money, and then we're going to be buying all the weapons. We have like 20 weapons left to buy or something like that. It's just crazy. So we're just gonna be doing a lot of money farming. It's probably gonna be a couple streams. But on Saturdays, we're gonna be streaming Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered for almost completion. On Saturdays, will be at 5 Pacific Standard Time, and on Sundays, we're gonna be streaming Intro 2 for almost completion. On Sundays, will be at 5 Pacific Standard Time. In addition to that, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm gonna be hosting a live stream focusing on my novel project. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm gonna be working on my Rise Work Trust stream, where from 1 p.m. 5 Pacific Standard Time, I'm gonna be working on my next book. As always, something new I'm gonna try and do a little bit more consistently. And it's just a little closing message. I'm gonna try and experiment it, try and give my stream a little bit more flair. Strive to be extraordinary, everyone.